VENMO Sports. Hey y'all, it's me, Bus-Dunk-a-Dunk Tank, and welcome back to Hot or Hot. And today we'll be reviewing episode 12 of RuPaul's Drag Race season 17, where our queens split themselves into pairs and then were challenged to deliver charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent monologues with the twist, because y'all wanted a twist day, that their partner would be performing the spoken word monologue as interpretive dance. Huh! I'm acting. And the runway category was Ugliest Dress Ever, celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the original Ugliest Dress Ever runway. But before we break all that down, I figure we should do a quick recap on last week's episode, since I didn't upload a hot or rot for it because I was too sick to do so, and for that I'm truly sorry. I did though upload my reaction to the episode as usual over on my Patreon at patreon.com/BusyQueen, and you can watch that along with this week's reaction using the link below. Last week we saw our final 7 girls overact in Ross versus the Ducks, which was a loose parody on reality TV stars of the day, mixed with some older references like Truman Capote and his swans. My personal highlights and hottest hots of last week's episode, though, were Onya Nurve's winning performance as Big Fupa, and then on the runway, Jewel Sparkle's black and white kitty cat fantasy, which was probably the best and cutest outfit she has worn all season. And in the bottom last week were Lydia and Lana, both of whom were lip-syncing for their 3rd time in this competition, and where we saw Lydia make the fatal mistake of using scissors to try and cut open her dress during the lip sync in order to get her legs free from the constraints of the dress. Which was pretty crazy that she thought this stunt would go over well, especially considering I think she was kind of doing better in the first half of the lip sync, up until, you know, she spent the second half trying to cut the dress off. And so unfortunately for Miss Butthole, she is sent sashaying away, which I'm sure stung a little bit extra considering she was sent home off the back of a win in the week prior's roast challenge. What really grinded my gears this episode was the girls responding to RuPaul's question of who should go home tonight and why, because literally 5 out of the 7 girls did not take this seriously. 4 said Suzie, 1 said Onya, and then the other 2, Onya and Suzie, are the only ones who answered it seriously and gave answers like Lydia or Lana. And I get that the girls are not trying to create enemies at this point in the competition, but at least answer RuPaul's question honestly and earnestly, and don't give this pageant BS of like, oh, that's my biggest competition, so they should stay. No, don't do that. Which was behavior that was thankfully and rightfully so called out by Miss Onya Nurve, which is also the perfect segue into my review of this week's episode. And now, in the order they performed their charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent monologues, as decided by Jewel Sparkles, first up, it's Suzie Toot, who was paired with Jewel Sparkles. And in her monologue, Suzie tells the story of failing to win a childhood spelling bee with an illustrious prize of a $50 chain restaurant gift card. And I would say from an oratorical perspective, Suzie did a great job and was actually maybe one of the best orators on the stage tonight. She was clear in her delivery, punctuated her jokes properly, and gave us some decent peaks and valleys. And we hear about how even though she fails to win this spelling bee, she did win the thing that mattered most that day, which was her father's approval. And my take on Suzie's monologue is that while it was very prepared and even perfect in the way it was delivered, I don't think she had enough jokes or really subverted the idea of what they were being asked to do enough. Because while there was some comedic payoff in this story, like at the end when she spells winner W-I-N-N-O-R, it just wasn't enough, and I was honestly getting kind of bored and tuning out like halfway through. And the thing with Suzie is we've seen her give these very good but not quite great performances before, like in The Rusical, where she played a phenomenal alphabet for stage, but on TV it just didn't quite translate into that bigger, grander, greater performance. And concerning the interpretive dance component of her monologue as performed by Jules, I thought Jules did okay with what was happening in the story. I mean, you can only make a dull story so exciting with silly dancing. And she did a cartwheel, she did a split, she was twirling the ribbon, she gave facial expressions. Like, I really genuinely think Jules gave all she could here. And I was looking for more laughs, but I'm still gonna give this performance a very safe high. And over on the runway, ho ho ho, Christmas has come early. The nightmare of Christmas, that is. She's giving us candy cane arms with tinsel hanging down, a Christmas tree body, and then like a Christmas tree skirt as the bottom trumpet skirt part of the Yeah. And where maybe the craziest detail of this look is that her head is like yellow goldish painted to, I guess, look like the top of a Christmas tree's angel baby topper situation. And the thing is, yes, I do think this dress is sufficiently ugly to meet the brief, but it feels very disjointed. And it's one of those looks where you're kind of playing I Spy, trying to figure out the details of what's going on with all the pieces. And I really just wish she had laser focused this look on the tree part of this dress instead of trying to do all the different bits and bobs of it. Because in the end, she kind of lost the fashion of it all, or never had it in the first place, which to me personally kind of misses the point of what the girls are being asked to do on this runway, which in my interpretation is to take a concept or idea so ugly and bad that it becomes again good. This look was just ugly, so I'm gonna give it a warming. And next up, she's more than just pretty, it's Jules Sparkles. And in her monologue, Jules tells the story of how she was haunted from a young age by a ghost that compelled her to make fabulous life choices. With the twist being, because y'all wanted a twist, eh, that the ghost was actually the spirit of Jules herself, who she joined with in the mirror later in life. And really the story of having a ghost imaginary friend growing up alongside you and challenging you to be different and then ultimately revealing themselves as just a tiny facet of you is really beautiful. However, Jules missed several opportunities here. I think the first was in preparation. She seemed a little nervous in the delivery of her monologue. And then she also, I think, focused a little too much on the like feel good aspect of what they were being asked to do and missed the mark on subverting this concept into something stupid and funny like the judges were really asking them to do. What wasn't helping Jules' monologue though was Suzie's interpretive dance. I think it was a little too simple and pretty and delicate, and she didn't take any real risks or chances with the dance that she was doing. And so I'd say Jules got like halfway there tonight. I'm gonna give this monologue a warming up. And over on the runway, she killed the 80s teen dream. Get over it. And Miss Jules here is wearing a recreation of an 80s prom dress that her mother apparently wore to prom, which she says was made by the only dressmaker in the area of Puerto Rico that she grew up in. And Michelle got really riled up over this dress because she's basically telling her, this isn't an ugly dress, this is just 80s. And Michelle is pretty right for saying that, because this dress really isn't anything more than what someone might have pulled off the rack or actually had made back then. And while from the lens of current trends, yes, this is ugly, it wasn't ugly then. And it also isn't elevated in a way that tells us the grander story of Jules Sparkles fashion. This is basically just Jules cosplaying as like an awkward 80s teen going to prom. And while I'm sure for somebody as pretty as Jules, this certainly is ugly, I just kind of think this missed the mark. So I'm gonna give this look a her wearing this and pretending like it's the ugliest dress ever is very like that meme with the girl in the grocery store with like the bag of food on her head, and it's like, she's so crazy, I love her. And next up, feeling bothered, it's Onya Nurve, who this week yet again is gathering the girlies and showing them how it's done. She is just at that piggy trough, eating. And she can't stop. She's at the buffet, she's clocked in, she's getting meal after meal. The other girls are starved, broke, desperate for something, and she won't give it to them. She got every scrap. Okay, I'm done. Onya really killed this monologue because she understood what was being asked, both in the sense of like, give us a story that is personal and has maybe a little lesson baked into it, with the really outer shell wrapper of stupid and comedy that the judges really want. And Onya's monologue here was a story about going raw vegan in the pursuit of health, happiness, and ultimately finding that her drag career and lifestyle just didn't mesh with veganism, and she ultimately cheated on this vegan diet with like 12 chicken wings. But the thing is, it really didn't matter what Onya was saying, it was how she was saying it. She had a joke punctuating every section of the story, and then some. She talked about the prunes, 85 ounces of water, and spinach that she ate to help her, and then over dramatizes really important parts of her story, like when her veganism takes a dark turn and she starts to put some sour cream on a bean burrito. She's so crazy, love her. This monologue was hot. And so sorry, I have to give credit to Lexi here too for her interpretive dance during this monologue, because Lexi was the first queen that we saw in the sequence of events that occurred to really like blow the lid off of the interpretive dance thing. She was performing from the tips of her fingers to the tips of her toes to the way her eyeballs were moving for every word that Onya enunciated. And it was really fun to see Lexi finally brush that inner saboteur away and say, not today, Satan, I'm doing my thing right here on God's green earth on our RuPaul stage, bam. But over the runway, it's a little early for Thanksgiving. Miss Onya Nurve comes out dressed like a turkey. And this look is a ride from head to toe. From the turkey neck going down the front of her face to like the turkey tail feathers behind her head like a collar to the literal like turkey nasty leg skin. Those legs, it's activating some kind of phobia that I have, and I don't like looking at them. They look so gross. And the outfit and presentation of it all is just so ugly. It is truly ugly. Onya really sat there and she said like, what is the nastiest, ugliest, grossest thing I could wear? And she did it. This is another look though, kind of like Suzie Toots for me, where it feels very parts and piecey, like we randomized a sim. I'm really wanting a little more direction and fashion out of these ugly dress runways. On top of the fact that I'm not even really sure what she's wearing could be classified as a dress. It's more of like a loose interpretation of like a business casual outfit, but as a turkey cosplay. And my thing is, if you're gonna be dressed like a bird on the runway, well, it's gotta be as good or better than Kennedy Davenport's iconic. Trey didn't like the session, so he gutted him, and now she's a crystallized glamazon bitch ready for the runway. And this wasn't that. So I'm gonna give it a And next up, everybody say Lexi Love, who in the challenge tells the story of coming to terms with her trans identity and dealing with a social media betrayal where her friend Mary got a wild hair up her ass and made fun of Lexi's features for looking too masculine. And I'll be honest, this was one of the monologues I was a little nervous for going into because her history with like speaking in front of others isn't the best in this competition, like in Snatch Game where she just totally was breaking character. And then also in this week's mini challenge where she had to write Mad Libs for Onya and it wasn't funny at all, but she really got it all together for this and was consistently funny with punctuated jokes throughout her story. And great little things to remember, like the guest judge pointed out, like passion without penetration. The weird thing about her story though is it was supposed to be about karmic retribution and we never really got there in the story. Instead of this other person who made the nasty comments about her on social media getting any sort of dose of karma, she in the story chooses to take the high road, which morally is a sentiment and thing that I would agree with doing. But in the context of Drag Race where we're looking for something funny, it just didn't land or feel punchy in the way that it should have. Onya though, in the interpretive dance of Lexi's monologue was an absolute treat. Again, this episode just completely hamming it up. And I will say I'm not totally sure some of what she was doing was even like interpretive of what Lexi was saying, but it was still funny. Like she was just balls to the wall, throwing everything and seeing what stuck. And it did. She was just so good, and this pair was perfect this episode. And I would say for Lexi overall, she did a good job of blending serious and stupid, even if she didn't really stick the landing in her story. And so I'm gonna give this monologue a hot. And over on the runway, Lexi understood the assignment as usual. This look is delectable. It looks like a beautiful wedding cake that's stacked with hundreds of tears, and you know, like there's so many hours of work that have gone into making this beautiful cake. She is giving us too many tutus, and I think she says in the confession like over 100 have been stitched together to create this beautiful dress, which I am here purposefully calling out as beautiful because she has taken this childish kind of concept of, oh, look at my pretty little tutu, whatever, that wouldn't necessarily be taken seriously in an adult fashion sense outside of like ballet, and turned it into something that is truly special, couture feeling, and ready for runway. This look is actually probably one of my favorites of this season so far. I think she should be really proud of this. It's so cool and totally hot. And next up, first in our final pairing, look to the skies, it's Sam Starr, who in her monologue tells the story of running for homecoming king and getting excited about doing so by putting a bunch of posters of herself around her high school. However, those posters get vandalized by some bullies and changed from homecoming king to homecoming queen. And after some reflection while sitting on a toilet, she realizes that the bullies were right, and she was indeed a queen deserving of a crown, but maybe just not the homecoming crown, a bigger and better crown, maybe. TBD. And the thing with Sam's story is really cute, and I think will resonate with a lot of people who maybe grew up in those small towns where they were facing active threats of homophobia from bullies in their school. Because the bigger message of her story of turning your thorns into flowers, I think is poignant and a beautiful one to take away from her monologue. But there really was no subversion of expectation in this story. Like as soon as she was talking about homecoming king, we kind of knew where she was gonna go with that. And she also just didn't really have any jokes in there. She just said, I'm gonna tell a little feel-good special story and have a sweet little moment, but we're forgetting that half of this challenge is like to just be a complete ham and get stupid with it. And the thing was, her monologue partner Lana was trying to, I think of a good interpretation of what was going on, but there wasn't enough pause in the story for Lana to like sit in some of the dance moves that she was doing. And so Lana was just sort of constantly moving her body in this, you know, kind of awkward way as she went around the stage. Didn't really add anything to it. So overall, I'm gonna give this monologue a rat. And over on the runway, Sam really confused me when she turned the corner because I was immediately gagged by how sickening this look was. This is literally one of the coolest things, if not the coolest thing she has worn all season. It's giving like Buffalo Bill, but make it fashion. The way she has constructed this like stitched together suit of skin with the organs falling out in the front and the campy like knife fascinator in the wig is absolutely insane. The details on this are incredible. The silhouette is stunning and she looks great. This outfit is like a Dragula girl's wet dream. She absolutely executed on that concept, and it is so insane to me that she wore this for the ugliest dress ever runway, because there's nothing about this that is ugly besides, according to her, just the idea of like blood and guts, which I guess checks out. Like our pageant perfection queen is sitting there thinking with her like innocent sweet little mind, what's the ugliest thing ever? Blood. Ew. Let's make a dress out of that. I don't know, like it came out way cooler than I think she even thought it would or could be. And her confessional while she's describing this dress was even funnier because she says, who would want to wear a dress made out of meat? Lady Gaga would like a word. Hello? She invented that. Sam accidentally served up one of the coolest looks of the night, but it wasn't on beef. I mean brief. So like on a technicality, this look is a little bit of a rot, but it's sickening as hell and otherwise would be a And finally, I'm wearing several pairs. It's Lana JaRae, who in her monologue compares life to a dark maze and tells the story of finding her inner light to help guide her through the labyrinth of life. Oh, via the art of drag, of course. And there was a lot in her monologue that I think many can relate to, the feeling of never being good enough in a room full of people, and also growing up with a family who doesn't understand your fruity ways. But Lana's another queen tonight who really fell into that trap of delivering just a feel-good after-school special that has a great message and relatability, but unfortunately wasn't funny. And Sam, bless her heart, I don't really know what she was doing for this interpretive dance component. She was kind of just walking around stage holding that lantern for a little too long. And I think like Lana was just taking it all way too seriously when the point again was to be stupid. Sam and Lana, where were the jokes? Have to give this monologue a And over on the runway, Lana is re-wearing Candy Muse's pocket dress from season 13, which like, let's just take a moment of silence for Candy Muse's season 13 runway package because that was crazy. My favorite being the like green alien bodysuit she wore with the alien attached to the back. Wild. But also let's not forget the train dress she allegedly had somewhere in a suitcase somewhere with the train so long that it snaked throughout the entire stage, which unfortunately we never saw proof of, but she drew a picture of. This dress Lana is wearing certainly is ugly. And if this were her dress for the ugly dress runway, I think a lot of people would be really happy with it because it fits the brief and has these elements of cohesion and idea of design, right? There's some intentionality here and it's not just like, let me throw a bunch of random ugly together. It makes sense for the ugliness that it is. But my problem with seeing a dress reworn by another queen on the Drag Race runway is that it lacks originality. Where's Lana's point of view here on this runway besides just like taking the cheap shot at Candy, which I'm sure she is of course in on the joke, but there's nothing more to this than, hey, this dress was really ugly, I'm wearing it for the ugly runway, haha. Had Lana instead though maybe taken pieces of this dress and then constructed like a really interesting looking ball gown out of all the pockets, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But yeah, after getting over that original, haha, that's Candy's ugly dress on the ugly dress runway, there's nothing there. So I'm gonna give this a and concerning placements this week, this episode was cut and dry, mama. Extra dry. Our tops, to no one's surprise, were Lexi and Onya, who worked together so surprisingly well, and I think really brought out the good in each other. Plus, they were the only pair that really got what was being asked of them in this challenge. And the judges do decide to judge everyone in pairs, so they do share the win this week, which I think is the most appropriate thing to do, considering that they were both involved in each other's monologues. I'm not totally sure that they originally planned to split this week's win, though, because Ru did ask them to split the $5,000 cash tip for the win. And so seeing them share this win kind of felt to me like the judges wanted to even out the win pool just a bit, because I think Onya was like the clear, if they had to pick just one person, winner of this week's episode, but Lexi was there too, and they thought, let's even the odds a bit, she deserves it. Either way though, Onya gets her official 4th win of this competition in 12 episodes. She has won a third of the episodes so far, and 2nd in a row. Like, she is sweeping this competition. Because even on the episodes where Onya hasn't gotten a win, it's like, wow, she did so well, maybe she could have. And Lexi, who has been safe for many weeks, finally gets her 2nd win, which I know she was just absolutely hankering for. And very fairly deserves. And in the bottom this week, again, to no one's surprise, are Sam and Lana. And I will say, like, to their credit, they were the last ones to go, and they did go after a very funny pair. And so we were dealing with a little bit of fatigue by the time we got to them, as well as we were directly comparing them to the best of the week. But they also just weren't funny. So that's that. And concerning Sam and Lana's lip sync to Dula Peep's Illusion, the writing was on the wall going into this, let's be honest. This is Lana's 4th lip sync of the competition, and her 2nd back-to-back, and Sam's 1st. And Sam has 2 wins in the competition, and Lana has 0. And so really, I think this was going to be one of those lip syncs no matter what, that as long as Sam showed up and moved her mouth to the song and gave a moderately okay performance, she was going to stay, and Lana was going to sashay. Which is why I was actually a little gooped and gagged to see both of them really giving it their all. Like, Sam didn't take her advantageous position in the competition for granted, and Lana put up a fight to stay. And track record aside, I actually think these two turned out one of the better lip syncs of the season, and they both did a great job. And if this weren't Lana's 4th time in the bottom, this definitely could have been like a double Shantae moment, but 4 times in the bottom is a lot. And so I think it was time to say goodbye to Miss Lana, even though I've really fallen in love with her as a queen. Her kind of goofy, easygoing personality mixed with that like high fashion model on the runway thing is really unique and refreshing to see, and I think she's a cool queen, and I am sad to see her go. Concerning my final thoughts on this challenge though, I will say this isn't one that I think we need to see repeated again. This was the 2nd iteration of it. You'll remember we did it back on All Stars 6, but without the interpretive dance component. I really didn't love it then, and I didn't love it now. I liked it better now with the interpretive dance part, right? Because it adds that layer of like, yes, we want you to be stupid with this, but it's just confusing from the perspective of figuring out what to do in this challenge, because you're being asked to tell a true story and like incorporate a lesson that you've learned, but also like be stupid and make the judges laugh. And those things don't always marry together very easily, as we saw. And as for my final thoughts, I think it's crazy that we're already going into a final 5. But it's even crazier that our absolute frontrunner Onya still has an opportunity to win like, what, 2 more challenges? Of which, I mean, I kind of think that she might win another one. And if she wins 5, that would be like record breaking for the series. So it'd be cool if she does that. But otherwise, we're pretty even across the board with Lexi, Sam, and Suzie having 2 and Jules having 1 win. And now it's time for Hottest Hots. In the challenge, I'm gonna give it to Onya Nurve, and on the runway, Lexi Love. I also asked my patrons to vote on their Hottest Hots, and this week they have voted with me for Onya in the challenge and Lexi on the runway. And finally, I want to give an extra special shout out to Jeffrey Mogum, who's just joined my Patreon at the Hot tier, and Ashton, Felicia, Lara, Matthew Burns, Mikal, Meets, Music and Makeup Records, and Will and Tanner, who are all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier at patreon.com. See y'all later. Love ya. Bye.